All right, hey, it's September 29th, Tuesday. Um, Bringing your weekly fishing report from down here at Lake of the Ozarks. This is also the week of the Big Bass down here. Going to be here this Saturday and Sunday. Chance to win $100,000, I believe it is. Great event. It's going to bring a lot of anglers, a lot of chances to win a lot of money. So. It's always a great time. A lot of great people here have a good time, and the Turtles do an excellent job putting it on throughout the entire lake. It usually goes off without a hitch. So first we'll talk about the conditions. Obviously, this week lot of cool weather, cool nights. The water's really changing temperature wise. Today had in the lower 70s. Was up in the Little Nine was today. The water level is 658.58, I believe it is. So that's about a foot, about 16 inches below summer pool. So, it's come down a little bit, but they're really not running any water. We did have about 3 inches of rain just the other evening, and it was some cool rain. So that's going to cool down the backs. It's going to cool down the creeks, some of that shallower water. And even the main lake, the surface of it will cool down too. Their upper river arms did kind of stain up a little bit. Like I said, I was up in the Big Niagara today, and we noticed, a lot dirtier water up there than as we got down towards the mouths. And even down towards, say, the Highway 5 Niagara Bridge, that water was green, looked pretty stable still. As far as fishing goes, just in general, we'll talk about that first. Last weekend we had a 2-day BFL down here. If you paid attention to that, the weights were down. I was going into that tournament myself, fishing it. 2-day tournament. Realistically, I was hoping for 13, 14 pounds a day is really all I was catching. Really wasn't catching any big fish to speak of. Fish real hard, fish shallow, fish deep, fish mid-range, and all I could do was come up with just a little bit small limit. So, fishing had really kind of changed in just a couple of days. And that's that time of year is what I'm getting at. It's really changing day to day right now. We're going into fall. We're getting cold fronts. Pretty good cold front this week. Water temperatures dropping and fish are just starting to move. They're relocating. It's just what we call a transition. They're transitioning from summer into fall. And that's where we're at right now. We're right in the middle of it. Guys are catching fish shallow, like 2 foot of water, and guys are catching fish deep. The guy that won the BFL this weekend said he caught his fish really deep in brush. So, that kind of tells you sometimes when you get a major cold front or water temperature drops drastically, these fish will just kind of go and lay in a brush pile and just hang out there, until things kind of stabilize. And that's probably what happened last week a little bit, and even this week. There's several guys caught them deep, and some guys caught them shallow. But, like I said, the guy that won, he caught them deep. Talked to a few other people that's been catching them, in brush here the last few days. Brush, say, 8, 10 foot, all the way out to 20 foot. So, they're relating to brush for whatever reason this past week, and they really went to that brush this last week or two, and it usually is because of a major cold front or changing conditions for whatever reason, and they'll just, like I said, they'll just kind of go hang out in some brush piles. So something to keep in mind when you're fishing this week, or maybe going into the Big Bass. But this week, I've been all over the lake. I've been up the Gravois one day, fished in the from the Glaze down to Tantera one day. Was today we was up way up the Niagara's. Over the weekend, I decided to not make a long run against my better judgment, and it probably cost me, fishing 2 days. I pretty much fished from the Glaze to say Lynn Creek area, and it just wasn't happening. There was a lot of boat traffic, weather changes, that's all just kind of excuses. Basically, when it comes down to it, I didn't catch them, so that's that. But throughout the week, we've been catching them pretty good, and mainly this time of year, you just got a few things kind of doing. Just that shaky head, mag finesse shaky head on a quarter, 5/16, crackhead shaky head, just flipping it in around shallow docks underneath the big swim platforms and stuff, and producing some fish. Flipping a jig, just flipping like a half-ounce zapper jig with the trailer. Like this is a D-bomb, just flipping it underneath these docks, catwalks, any kind of shallow cover. I've been catching some fish, doing that, and actually we caught a lot of fish Saturday between me and my co-angler. I don't know how many fish we caught, but we caught a ton of them. We caught them running a topwater early. We caught them swimming a jig, around docks, and we caught them flipping shallow docks. So we caught them everything we were doing. We were going shallow, mid-range, deep, and we just kept switching it out throughout the day, trying to really kind of start putting something together, and never really did that. But we caught fish doing everything we did, So you're going to do that this time of year. As far as catching a lot of fish, it's those big fish that this time of year for the next, say last week and this week and going into the following week, we get a 2.5, 3 week period where it just gets really tough to catch a lot of good fish, and we've seen that this past weekend with the 2-day tournament, the BFL, stacked full of guys that can catch fish, know how to catch them. One day they caught them, the next day they had 2, 3 fish. So it kind of shows you, it was kind of the norm this week of just not everyone really caught them. No one really caught them real good. And it just goes to show we're kind of in that 2-3 week period where that's going to happen. But you can catch a lot of fish. In a topwater, throwing, say, a buzz bait, a smaller whopper plopper. It's catching a lot of fish up by the banks. Spooks are catching them. Like I said, flipping these other baits. You're catching a lot of fish. And like I said, you can go shallow, you can go deep. Pretty much whatever you want to do, you're going to catch them. So that's kind of what's went on this past week. Now going into the bass here, this is a whole different story. You're looking for one big fish for the entire weekend. And when I say a big fish, I'm going to say 5 pounds and above. And, that'll get you paid fairly well. In this, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb, and I'm going to say it's going to take 3 3/4 to get a check. I'm going to say it's down a little bit to get paid. I think they pay down the top 25 every 2 hours, I believe it is. And I'm going to say it's only going to take an upper 3 to get paid in this bass. Just the lack of big fish being brought in. So keep that in mind, when you're thinking about weighing in a fish. So as far as baits, at least what I would recommend using for the bass, and it's a whole different mindset. It's really hard to get into. Like if you're fishing a big bass, you're not looking for that limit. You're not looking for 15 pounds, 16 pounds to carry you to the second day or get you a good bag. It's not going to do you no good in this. 3-pounders, forget it. In the tournament, 3-pounders look pretty good. In this thing, you're looking for 5, 6. I'm going to say an upper 6-pounder. Heavy 6 is probably going to win this fall. And so you got to get in the mindset. You're not going to get a lot of bites fishing some of these baits that I'm going to show you. But if you do get a bite, it's probably going to be a weigher, and it's probably going to get you paid. So that being said, we'll just start with, say, some of the bottom baits that I would throw. If you want to flip shallow docks, you know, same baits, just flip you a 1/2 ounce jig, zapper jig, flip you underneath these docks. You're liable to come up with a good one. More than likely, from what I've seen, those fish just have not quite committed to the backs. They're still kind of out on main lake points, secondary points, and then brush piles. So when it comes to that, if you're going to fish brush piles, say 8 to 15 foot of water, I'd put on a 5/16 shaky head, put you on something like this Yamamoto cut-tail worm, drag it through that brush. Can't hardly go wrong with that. You know, that's going to catch you some fish. Or the old faithful Berkeley power worm. This is a 10-inch blue fleck on a 5/8 ounce shaky head, crackgator shaky head. Now, you know, if you want to throw, say, 15 to 20 foot of water, throw it out and just drag it along as slow as you can drag it. Feel everything on that bottom. Try to find a little brush. And if you catch fish on that, that's probably going to be a great big one. You know, so this always seems to catch a lot of big fish, you know, as far as on the bottom. If you're going to flip, also, like they say, a crackgator brush hog, or not the brush hog, the swamp bug senior, rig on a gator lock, crackgator gator lock, hold that on there real good so don't slide off. Flip that around some shallow docks, say 5 foot or less. If you see a lot of shad back there moving, the bigger shad. That's another thing I'll say. You'll see a lot of shad out there right now. A lot of them small ones. You know, I wouldn't say don't pay attention to them, but don't put a lot of, you know, faith in those. Look for the big ones. If you're looking this weekend, you're going to find shad that are 5 to 8 inches long, the big ones. That's what the big fish are feeding on. Something like this is going to imitate that. You know, a big spinnerbait, a big double willow leaf spinnerbait with a big plastic swim bait trailer, say white chartreuse. If you're up in the river areas, you know, throw it around shallow docks, right alongside the shallow docks, lay downs. You know, just a big double willow leaf is notorious for catching big fish. This bass has been won on a double big willow leaf way up the river a couple years. Same thing, white. Say if you're down lake, say the wind picks up, you want to swim this around some docks, you know, corners of docks, shade, anywhere you see big shad working, way in the backs around shallow brush, shallow corners of docks. You know, throw that slow roll down through there. You might get one of the great big ones come out and grab that, you know. Another thing, say the wind picks up real good the weekend. Don't be afraid to just go to a bluff end, a main lake bluff end, and throw this thing and throw it right up to the bank and don't burn it, but keep it down about a foot, just about out of sight where you can still see that bait, and just work that thing, you know, from the bank all the way back to the boat. And you know, this time of year, the fish are in transition. They're starting to come up out of some of that deep water along these bluffs, and they'll just go up there and they'll suspend down there about 4 foot of water, and you bring a big spinnerbait through them, just above them. A lot of times you'll get one to come up and hit it, you know. Probably won't catch a whole lot yet. You know, that's still to come. Say November's prime for that. But for this weekend, I'd definitely be throwing a big spinnerbait. It's just a big fish bait, you know. Back to deeper water. I talked to Mark Weezy. He likes a big bait this time of year. He fished a tournament last weekend, had 20 pounds. I talked to him. It's just a simple setup, a Wheezy jig, and he likes a brush hog on it. A big brush hog. It's just imitating these big shad. Throw it in some brush, drag it over the brush. The Wheezy jig's going to come through the brush for you real well. And he recommends, say, 12 to 18 foot of water, brush piles, and just creep it through there, let it lay there, pull it again, kind of disturb them branches, try to get you a big one to come and take a look at it and eat you the big jig. So that's just a full-size brush hog rigged on the back of a 5/8 ounce Wheezy jig. Probably the best jig to throw around brush as far as crawling it through it and not getting hung up. So try one of the big Wheezy jigs if you like, you know, fishing the bottom, you want to drag. So, you know, big 10-inch power worm or a big Wheezy jig or if you want to downsize just a little bit, the 5/16 shaky head with a Yamamoto cut tail. Those would be my 3 bottom bait choices. And I'd either be fishing bluff ends, midway through bluffs, or I'd be looking for brush piles, say just inside main lake points or around main lake points. Maybe little pockets kind of halfway back in these creeks, and say 8 to 12 foot of water is where I would say your bigger fish are going to hang out, and just kind of lay in these brush piles. Now, if we do get some overcast, or say early mornings while the water's still fairly calm, I would have to go with Topwater for first thing in the mornings. Your Topwater baits, you're gonna have a spook, same old 1-knock spook, bone color. Don't forget to switch up your hooks, put you some better quality hooks on it. Work that on points, big rock area. Anywhere you see moss on the rocks, pay close attention to that. Your whopper plopper, the 130, the big one, I would just go with this loon color, the black, and throw it right to the bank and just reel that thing back in at a pretty steady pace. On that whopper plopper, one thing I'll say is you can reel it too slow, you can reel it too fast. You really want to pay attention to the noise. As you're retrieving that in, the louder plopping noise, the louder you hear. As soon as you get to that speed, that's what you want to pay attention to. The louder plopping noise, that makes that disturbance, and that's the sound and the action that's going to make these fish react to it. So once you get that speed, pay a lot of attention to that and try to duplicate that. Every once in a while on the whopper, as you're bringing it in, give it a little extra pull to make it, kind of extra little splash, a little extra motion. A lot of times the fish will swim right behind it until you make a different movement or different action, and that's what will get them to react to it. So the big whopper plopper is a big fish bait. Throw it, like I said, bluff ends, throw it just inside the points, and any big rocks, ledgy rocks, anything really hard bottom, throw around that. On the steeper stuff, but don't be afraid to go on the flat side of the main lake and run it down some flat banks. A lot of times some shad will go to that cool water, and they'll get up in there around the flatter side of the main lake banks, and run it kind of 45 degree and run it at a pretty good pace. It's just a big fish bait. This is a bait we'll start throwing this time of year to try to catch us a couple big fish. Still on Topwater, the 3/4 ounce head knocker buzzbait has definitely caught its fair share of big fish down here. Like always, I like the gold, I like the 3/4, black, all black. Put your trailer on it. This time of year, a lot of fish, they're wanting to come up, they're wanting to feed on the top, and they'll shark strike you. So definitely put you a trailer hook on her to catch those fish that want to come up and shark strike. They come up and swirl on it. They come up and try to injure it. I'm not sure what, but a lot of them will shark strike you. So you just make sure you put you a good, like a number 4 at least, treble hook on the back of there. Let it hang off of there and work it. And basically work it the exact same as the whopper. Just go down a bank, make a good long cast, and retrieve that thing from the rocks out, at least halfway to the boat before you speed it up and bring it in. And the deal is with the Topwater, whether it be the whopper plopper, the buzzbait, the spooks, these bass are hanging out about 4 or 5 foot off of the bank, and they're watching these shad up on the bank, the bluegill up on the bank, and as they come out or break away from the bank, that's when the bass goes in and ambushes them or attacks them. So your bait's basically imitating that. Keep that in mind. When you're retrieving it out, throw right on the bank. If you're throwing and you're hitting 5 foot from the bank, you're not going to catch near the fish as if you throw right to the bank and bring that thing off of the bank as if it's a shad or bluegill coming off of the bank. So if you hit it 5 foot, you're hitting right on top of them fish, is my whole point of that. So that bait, the whopper, the buzzbait, just throw it on braid, 50-pound braid, so you can throw it over cables. under catwalks. There's really no reason not to throw it on braid. Good big fish, you can horse them in. You don't have to worry about breaking your line. If you are going to go in and try to throw around the cables under the catwalks, it's busy. There's a lot of boaters, a lot of fishermen. They're just going to be pounding the bank. The Crocky Gator X-Bite is the buzz bait we designed just for that. You see it's rigged with a horny toad on the back of it. Makes a real flat profile, so when you're trying to skip it, it'll skip real good. It slips and skips on the water, and it'll get underneath them cables back there where the fish are living right now. Throw that on braid too. You get it way back in there and start retrieving that thing. Under them catwalks, under them cables, and this is the bait to throw if you're wanting to skip and get back in there. Right here. I just like a horny toad on it. A black one, or this is, I think it's called Gray Ghost. Seems to work the best. It's more about the action and where you're putting these baits to get something to react on it. So, that's your top water baits, your bottom baits. Keep it pretty simple this weekend looking for these big fish. And don't be afraid to try odd things, something different, One other thing I will say is, if you get down, say, the lower end where it's real clear, the gravel ice area, and you want to just try something kind of, I ain't going to say off the wall, because this actually won one of the bashes, a big swim bait, or not a swim bait, a big glide bait. This is at River to Sea. It's called the S-Wave, and this thing just makes a big, long, like it said, S motion. Just looks like a big wounded shad, a shad this size is what they're feeding on. So something like this, you won't get a lot of bites, but when you get one to bite this, you're going to make a trip in to weigh them. So, keep something like that in mind. And same deal, main lake docks, big docks, right along the sides of it, bluff ends, big rocks. If you're going to throw it to the bank, you're throwing it in the exact same place you throw your spook or your whopper plopper, and just you'll see when you're reeling it, it just makes a big gliding wounded shad hook, and it's an excellent bait for giant fish. It doesn't catch a lot of them, but when it does, it's a big one. So keep all that stuff in mind for the bash. You're looking for one fish, guys. You're not looking for a bunch of them. You're looking for one. So like always, it's going to be busy. They put a offshore boat race right on top of the bash, and it's down there around 7-8 mile marker. So there's going to be a lot of boats down there, a lot of spectators setting up. So it's going to be busy. It's going to be a busy weekend. Every weekend's been busy. It's busy during the week. Just have the extra patience. If you see another angler, be respectful. Try not to cut people off. There is going to be a lot of boats coming, going. You're going to meet people. Just go around them. You're looking for one fish. I don't care if the guy just went through there and you come right behind him. You're waiting for this fish to move up and catch him. With that being said, I'd probably lean towards some of these deeper brush piles. If you know brush piles, they're not going to be likely to be hit and worked over like your bank fish. The people I know that's won the bash in the past several years, not too many of them catch them right off of the bank. You will have some, like say the first morning when things are still fresh, but as the day goes on and these fish see all these baits all day long, they're going to back off. They get wise to this stuff. They're going to back off, probably lay in a brush pile, or they're going to get so far underneath the dock, you're not going to get to them. So keep that in mind when you're out there, trying to catch this big fish. So for everybody, good luck to everybody. Be safe out there. Man, that's really all I got this week for you. Is it's just man, it's that time of year. So don't get discouraged if you're not catching a lot of fish or any fish, because just say for an example, today I had a trip, and like I said, we was up to Little Niagara, And this has been happening a lot. We had 2-3 hours. It was pretty slow. I mean, we caught a few fish, a few smaller fish, and then all of a sudden about 11, 12 o'clock, starting to get a little more. About 1 o'clock is when we caught the most of our fish. And we caught a couple decent fish on some topwater. And we were swimming jigs, you know, had a couple good boils on the buzz bait. So that afternoon topwater bite can really turn on. You know, a lot of times these fish, you'll have an early bite, first 2 hours, then you'll have that lull mid-morning, and then afternoon, noon to 3, them fish will come up and they'll really feed. A lot of times you'll notice the shad, as a perfect example today. You looking at my Garmin's, them shad are down there. They're down there 15 foot suspended. The topwater bite's just not going to be there. As soon as them shad come up, you start noticing shad on the surface, flipping, big ones moving around. They get a little more active. The bass are coming up with them. So a lot of times your noon, afternoon bite gets really good on topwater, buzzbait, spooks, whopper plopper. You know, those your big fish will feed usually noon to 3 o'clock this time of year. So just keep that in mind. If you're not catching nothing, haven't caught anything, it's never over. You're only looking for one. You need one fish to bite. So, you know, just keep that in mind as the day goes on and it gets late. So, whatever, guys, just be careful, and we'll talk to you next week.